I think that Hector McClean did a lot in his own way to influence the change of the direction of the politics in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think he was very honest, very passionate, and very sincere about that.
My impression, he was a genuine member of the People's National Movement. And he got a lot of support from his constituents in Rook and Hort. And I thought because of the support he had, it meant that he really worked for his area. I couldn't find any fault with McClean.
Well, it was certainly a very brave move on his part to take on the political establishment of the PNM in the mid-1970s. Dr. Williams was someone who did not tolerate party indiscipline very easily and very nicely. And therefore, him making such a move, Mr. McClean, that was clearly an act of political bravery on his part, but it also meant the end of his political career in the PNM.
I was quite taken aback, shocked when he walked across the floor after making his speech and took a seat in the opposition side.
On March 31st, 1978, Hector McClean, then Minister of Works in the PNM government of Dr. Eric Williams, rose in the Parliament to speak. By the time he was finished, the parliamentary politics of Trinidad and Tobago would be changed forever.
Now, he spoke under the heading Statements by Ministers. So he gave a report on an overseas visit that he had had in the context of his ministerial portfolio, and then proceeded to announce his resignation from the cabinet and from the party and to declare himself to be an independent.
He had returned from a trip abroad as Minister of Works, and he got up to make a statement under Statement by Ministers, and he lashed out at the party, the PNM and the government, and then took his belongings and walked across to the opposition.
Dr. Eric Williams, then Prime Minister and the PNM leader, did have undated letters of resignation from all of his parliamentarians.
So Dr. Williams was in possession of an undated signed letter of resignation from Mr. McClean. Mr. McClean disavowed the letter on the floor of the House in making a statement.
It didn't have any foundation in law, and Hector McClean proved that.
It went to the courts, and it tested the power of the political leader of a party versus the power of the electorate. In the ruling, by declaring that letter invalid, the court was saying that you are a member of parliament because the people elected you, not the political leader appointed you. The political leader may have selected you, but your validity as a member of parliament resides in the popular will.
Dr. Eric Williams's problem of a dissident member who had come into Parliament on a PNM slate was also being experienced in the opposition ranks by opposition leader Basdeo Pandey. Together, they forged a way forward.
It was a question of dealing with a situation that was in serious conflict to one of the main planks of the PNM in its thrust for self-government and independence and all of that. And that main plank was morality in public affairs. And that was being put to the test once more by him walking out of the PNM and standing opposite to the PNM and opposing the PNM thereafter during the remainder of his tenure during that term in the Parliament.
Hector McClean's abrupt resignation from the PNM as minister triggered the introduction of the Crossing of the Floor Bill, that controversial piece of legislation.
Dr. Williams now had a different leader of the opposition to work with who had a similar problem as he did. That is to say, a member who had changed their allegiance. And he reached out to Mr. Pandey, and within 2 weeks, a bill was hurriedly put together to come to the Parliament to create the Crossing the Floor Act. So they were going to amend Section 49 of the Constitution to put in an additional condition on which an MP would be required to vacate their seat in the House.
The Crossing of the Floor Act of 1978 was never made part of the standing orders of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and as a result was not enforceable against parliamentarians. Its enforceability would be raised again when Dr. Vincent Lass and Dr. Rupert Griffith crossed the floor to join the Basdeo Panday administration in 1997, and also after Herbert Volney announced his resignation from the United National Congress after being fired from the People's Partnership Government.
Hector McClean, his departure from the PNM triggered that controversial law, which still is defective in my view. The only person who got kicked out under it was Herbert Volney.
Whether or not Hector McClean knew it, his actions brought about a rethink on how parliamentarians crossing the floor should be treated by their parties. His was a bold move. History would be the ultimate judge of its impact on the PNM and the parliamentary politics in Trinidad and Tobago.
I got the impression that McClean leaving did not create a stir for participants in the party. He was just one of some members of the party. In that period of time, the party was building more membership and supporters, so that McClean leaving was just one of those things.
I think that his crossing of the floor affected the morale of the core of the PNM.
When McClean made his challenge, it certainly opened the door to a new era in politics where a direct and credible challenge to the PNM could in fact take place, even though McClean was not part of it.
A political party cannot be not a damn dog bark. It has to take its power from the people, and this is our challenge in Trinidad. How do we get leadership that is responsive to the interests of the people and what they are saying, the people who claim to represent?
In 1995, Hector McClean would enter the 5th Republican Parliament as Speaker of the House, presiding over proceedings in 1997 when Dr. Vincent Lass and Dr. Rupert Griffith crossed from the opposition People's National Movement to the then United National Congress government.